Salla.
Thank you.
And so fun to have someone to speak deep math with as well, even though I have no clue what your thesis is about, and it's really complicated, but very fun to be able to talk about these topics in depth. But I heard that you also are getting a new thesis student in the spring, which seems to have a rather interesting topic with federated learning and recommender system. What's the plan there?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of tend to identify things that I think could be important for the bank going forward. And I think we're fortunate in having really good contact with researchers in different universities and sourcing really talented students to look at different things. So what we want to do with these specific students that I had like a meeting with today is to look at whether we could use some sort of a federated approach to deploying recommender engines, probably mainly for retail clients, probably not this year or next year, but I think it's still it's a really important area for us to explore.
And it's two of my favorite topics as well, federated learning and recommender systems. But can you just explain perhaps for people not familiar, what is the application? How can customers of SEB potentially make use of this?
Yeah, so my sort of idea is that we need to be able to give good advice to our clients, especially on the retail side. And today we have something called open banking in financial services, which sort of opens up for clients to have several different banks, but have like one app, for instance, where you can see all of your transactions and all of your money and everything. So you can actually collect everything, which means that you become... Bless you.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. In Corona times, that's a no-no.
Yeah, this is scary.
sorry.
Yeah, so open banking allows you to like collect all your information in one place, and that means that there's a sort of a new possibility to create better recommendations for you as a client. But you might not necessarily want to share all your information with one bank. Right. You might want to have a good recommender engine that caters to your needs, but does not necessarily share the data in itself. So you want to have recommender engines locally that share some parameters somehow with like the mother brain or something of the algorithm.
And recommend what? I mean, I can certainly appreciate that financial data, of course, is super sensitive and it needs to be kept secret and you don't want to extract it and share it unnecessarily. But I guess there are many different things you could potentially recommend. But do you have any plans? What do you want to start with to recommend to clients?
Well, I think, and this is probably because I'm really colored by something that I did together with a couple colleagues a couple years ago. I think the sort of investment space is somewhere it's really important for our clients to get good advice, and it's an opportunity to potentially create wealth or see to it that your pension is as good as possible. So
recommending funds or shares or stocks or what?
Yeah, so probably initially recommending funds, because the legal framework that we work in when we're a bank is very restrictive, which I think is good because it keeps our clients safe. But it also means that we need to take into account a lot of different things in the recommender engine. I mean, it's not like if you look at Netflix, and I think we talked about this before, if you look at Netflix and you get recommended a really bad movie, you might get a bit annoyed, but the impact is way smaller. Yeah.
I really like this approach because normally when you do like stock trading or this kind of algorithmic stock trading, you simply look at what actually makes the most profit, but to actually have a personalized way to invest in things that you personally like, I guess it's another view to do it or another way to do it that potentially is even more.
Yeah, and to me it's a huge difference between robotic trading here and now to how I invest long term and maybe depending on my risk profile that I want to have as a customer. I get a better understanding for what type of funds would suit my pension planning. And it could even be different when you're young and you want to be more aggressive and maybe more safe when it's at the end.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also like I might have a preference to have sustainable products rather than sort of the cheapest products, or I might want to invest in things that I believe are important for the future. And then having like a good way of giving that kind of recommendations, I think it will be really interesting. I think it's a challenging problem, but I like to do stuff.
But it's a quite concrete problem. And it's something that we do today, but someone needs to physically do it and be very knowledgeable. And how can you in the end keep track of all the funds in the world that you potentially could invest in? And if you look at the global financial space, potentially the world looks different when it's not only to know about a couple of funds in Sweden, but my pension fund can be invested in stocks somewhere else, or then it becomes a whole another ball game. Can a person actually recommend them?
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and I think the fun part about having sort of thesis students is that I can sometimes choose topics that are just interesting to me. So it's not necessarily aligned at all with the strategy of the bank, but I still think that it's really important for us to sort of at least explore the opportunities that we have in different spaces.
And I know stock trading is something you have worked with yourself a bit, and I'd love to get more into that topic as well. But before we go too deep into these topics, perhaps we should start by simply introducing yourself. Who is Salla Franzén?
Yes. So I work at SEB. I'll start with my job. I'm the Group Chief Data Scientist at SEB. I've been so for the last 3 years, a little bit more than 3 years. And so my job description is to inspire the bank to become more data-driven. It's very
job.
That's a big vision.
It's a big vision, and it's a bit scary, and it's also super fun. So when I came in 3 years ago, we had like 3 data scientists working in that team, and the last years we've grown. So now there's 11 of us. I always forget myself for some reason. And 8 of them are sort of hardcore data scientists. And then I have 2 people that are really skilled in data visualization, because those 2 kind of tend to go hand in hand.
Okay.
So we work in loads of different use cases across the bank and have done so since the beginning.
And do you have many pockets of data scientists within SAP, or is this, I assume you have, for the different use cases or domains, but this is the central one to look at. What's the difference with your 10 guys?
Yeah, so I think
Or girls, of course.
Yes, we are actually gender diverse.
Yeah. When I say guys, I mean the team.
Good. No, so I mean, we have data scientists working in many different parts of the organization. So we're going for something called a federated approach. And I think, so for me, the main point is that the data scientists working in the organization should be happy. And I think a data scientist tends to be happy when they have data to look at and some interesting question, and they get the attention from the business that they need. And so we have some people working in sort of more mature parts of the organization, and they actually work locally, and then they tend to...
More embedded.
Yeah. And they tend to like to come to our weekly meetings. We have a data science community to try to keep the team spirit alive. And then we have other parts where the maturity is sort of growing, and there we have maybe some data scientists there and some in my team sort of collaborating, and then we have other areas where we're just starting, and then it makes sense to have this sort of central team that can come in and help.
So you are working on the group level, and you're supporting, and then when a domain gets more and more mature, the typical journey is that they then find their own little team locally.
Yeah, and sometimes it's people from my team that sort of fall in love with some area, and then I'm more than happy for them to join that team or
to blossom into the organization.
Yeah, I always tell my team that once they come to my team, they will never leave. They might leave sort of physically, but emotionally they will always be in my team.
That's the way.
And SEB is a super interesting one, of course, but it's more to Salla than SEB, I guess.
Yeah.
Perhaps you can start or talk a bit about your background as well before SEB.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in quite many different countries. So I'm a Finnish citizen to start with, and now I'm a Swedish citizen as well. I lived in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Finland, obviously, the UK, and France before the age of 17. And then when I was done with high school, I decided to come to Sweden because at the time I had a boyfriend who was Swedish. And I chose Uppsala University because it's a good university. It's well renowned internationally. And I was going to do 6 months of math and then do something that would give me a job, because at the time mathematicians were not something. I mean, my uncle was a mathematician, but I think it didn't really feel like it was something that you could get like a proper job with. So I did 6 months of math, and then I did 6 more months of math, and then I did a year more, and suddenly I was sort of accepted to the PhD program, and then 10 years later I finished my PhD thesis, and then I did a postdoc in Oslo and in Sundsvall. But I think while I was finalizing my thesis, I was really starting to think about what I wanted in life.
And this is theoretical mathematics.
Yeah, exactly. Just theoretical math, topology, geometry, analysis, algebra.
And I tried to read a bit about your PhD thesis as well in theoretical math, and I must say it was really hard to comprehend. But if you were still to try to describe your thesis work and your main focus areas, how would you describe it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's see how good I am at explaining stuff. So I think... So I was working in several complex variables. So it's like complex analysis in one dimension it's the wave equation. It's all of these equations that were very beneficial for engineering. And then as a mathematician, you start to think, okay, but what if we add another variable? Does that make things more fun? Or is there something new that arises? And there actually is something quite surprising. And for me, it's that the geometry starts to play a role. So depending on if you have a surface in more complex dimensions, depending on how the surface looks, you can say a lot about how the functions are going to behave there. So it becomes like a really interesting problem to understand how much does the geometry dictate the behavior of the functions. Right. So that's kind of, that was the focus area. And we found this new way of cutting up surfaces in complex dimensions and gluing them back together. Yes.
And maybe some proofs for that in some way.
So you said something about that your supervisor had worked on this problem earlier, and now the math was evolving, and the whole idea for the thesis was new ways to look at this problem. Could you elaborate a little bit more? What was the new part of looking at the mathematical problem?
Yes, I think there's been a lot of sort of advances in both differential topology and differential geometry, and both of these tools were kind of needed in order to be able to actually glue together the sort of stuff that you cut. So you have a surface, and then you cut it in a smart way, and the smart way of cutting is also quite new. So that's like a theory that was developed probably in parallel with when my supervisor was looking at that problem. But then as the theory evolved by others, and I think it's quite often that this is one of the beauties of math for me, it's that if you have an interest in specific areas of math and you really learn them, then usually there's this odd bridge suddenly between two very different mathematical areas, and if you know both of them, you will see something that not other people might see.
Intersectional innovation.
Yes.
Unification of theories in some way.
That's another way.
I think Paul Erdős has this philosophy that there's like a book of all mathematics that there is, and that as a mathematician you're kind of you get access to small parts of that book.
Super good. I'm eager to go to like a Kant and this kind of is dust in thing. I shouldn't go there. It's too philosophical.
But no, I don't think so. But we should keep that beauty a little bit, because you said it also. One of the things with maths and what attracted you to stay there for 10 years is the actual beauty of math and the philosophical dimensions of it. So let's compartmentalize, park that, and come to the philosophical part when we finish a little bit. Like from here, where was your journey now out of the academic, maybe?
Oh yes.
So what happened? So 10 years.
Thank you.
10 years, and now what took you out of the academia?
Yeah. So then I was I was thinking more about like, what do I want in life? And I am the kind of person who really needs to learn new things. I get bored quite easily. And I kind of found finance quite interesting, both because there's a lot of mathematics in finance, and also, excuse me, it's not Corona, I found sort of, I had a feeling that there were a lot of applications that would be fun to look at from like a semi-mathematics but more applied perspective. And I also thought that it was quite lonely to be an academic researcher. I'm a very social person. So then my first job was in this small hedge fund. And I built like a risk performance assessment thing for them. It was really small. It was my 2 managers and myself. And they were probably the best people to introduce me to finance because they took so much time to really explain, like, how does trading work? If you look at markets, what should you be looking at? And why is there a spike in this curve? And it was the perfect learning opportunity, and they treated me so well.
And what was the problem that they wanted you to help them solve mathematically?
Yeah, so the first problem was to create like a system in order to be able to monitor how the fund was performing. But they had sort of a systematic way of investing. So they invested in the U.S. equities based on like customer sentiment from a research team. And the idea was that we could sort of refine the algorithms that they were using in order to identify the best stocks to invest in based on the customer sentiment.
So this was not more technical analysis, more fundamentals, you would say, based on this customer sentiment team, or?
Yeah. I think they had quite a fundamental approach, and had I stayed for longer than I did, I would probably have started to implement some more sort of quantamental or quant aspects to it. Yeah.
Yeah, we've discussed this topic a number of times, and I have some friends that really loves tradings in stocks or currency and whatnot. So one can speak about that for a long time. Someone is claiming, for example, that there is even no point, and I'm not agreeing with this, but some people are saying that there is no point in analyzing fundamentals, and the only thing you need to do is looking at the technical analysis and the curves of stock prices, open and close prices, and whatnot. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, I used to, this was 2008, I was working in the hedge fund, and I used to tell my managers that I wanted to start the A fund that would just invest in stocks starting with A. And then now you have like Apple, Amazon, Alphabet.
It must work. You would have killed it.
Scary thing, it probably would have worked.
It would have worked, I'm telling you.
It would have been perfect timing.
Because the smart companies figures out we need to get on the top, so we need to have an A name.
Yeah. And there's actually quite some fun anecdotes about the naming of companies. Like apparently there's a company that has Zoom as their ticker, and they've been performing really well during the pandemic because people think that it's the Zoom that we use when we're in virtual meetings, but it's something completely different. So I think there's still some alpha in fundamentals. I think it's good as a hygiene factor, but I think like if you want to outperform the best and the brightest, I think it's really the sort of open data and funky data that can give you the edge, unless you're just a lucky person.
Lucky is interesting to have. I had a friend, he built an algorithm, and he basically said that I will build some algorithm, it will make some recommendation, and I will do the exact opposite. And that's my strategy.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. You took it yourself. I think this is brilliant. He put all this effort in order to, and what was his logic? Well, if I can build an algorithm, so can someone else, and then everybody else will do that. So I will do the opposite to the market. It's a kind of reverse logic here, I think.
There is some weird logic in that reasoning, but...
Yeah. I really like that.
But the interesting thing, is he rich?
No.
Touché.
Yeah, but I mean, you have a lot of really smart mathematicians that have started funds that have gone belly up as well. I think there's such a lot of funky noise in the market. It's like my favorite example that I always tell, preferably in like really formal settings, is when Kim Kardashian, one of the Kardashians, tweeted about Snapchat, and that had a massive impact on the stock price. Yeah, so just follow the Kardashians. You tried
to make an algorithm to fix that, right?
I mean, there is a Trump trading algorithm as well.
Yeah.
Just look at Trump tweets, and it actually is working very well.
Very well. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's called the Kofefe index.
Yes, exactly. His misspelling that he made at some point.
Oh my God, that's good fun.
It's weird.
Yeah.
So hedge fund, yeah.
But speaking a bit more seriously about stock trading, I mean, there is like a good value and a purpose for having a stock market. I mean, you can get capital into companies, and that can be a good way to source further innovation and research and products. But there are also negative sides with the speculation and everything. What's your thinking there? Do you think that an increased amount of high frequency trading or algorithmic trading is positive or negative for the stock market?
Yeah. So I was the head of the index stock funds at SEB for like 3.5, 4 years. And I think if I start there, I think the index funds in themselves, they actually mainly provide stability because they're just following the sort of index, and it's the market. So it's the market cap of each company, and then you weight according to that, and that's what you hold. So I think without the index funds, I think the high frequency trading could have done a lot more to damage the market. And it's quite interesting to see sort of how it's like a competition, and you can see sort of how some of the algorithms are really trying to attack like index rebalancings, or some algorithms are really like very, very highly weighted on some news feed, and then you can almost like backwards engineer what it is they're trying to do, and it's I find that fascinating. I mean, it's like its own person almost. I know I have a colleague who always says that like, if you're scared of AI, we already have AI, because the market is not sort of, and it's kind of an AGI even because it just adapts and nobody really knows why.
It's like an organism in itself.
It's an organism in itself with all these different bots driving different behavior, and they are strengthening their own patterns, so to speak.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to understand.
Yeah.
So are you positive or negative about the future in stock trading in general?
I think I'm quite positive. I think over time regulation has become sort of better at catching behaviors that are actually really detrimental. And I mean, because I do think that the stock market is needed because it's a really good way to get funding for companies. And I think sort of over time, as long as people actually adhere to the regulations, I mean, the companies adhere to like disclosure regulations, I think that hopefully the price will adjust over time, and some people will make money and some people might lose money.
But what about like high frequency trading? I mean, why can't you simply, or shouldn't that be regulated more, you think? Or do you think it has some positive impact of having high frequency trading?
I think no, I don't think so. I think from a theoretical mathematician viewpoint, yes.
Yes, I can
because
actually
it's
see that.
super cool what they're doing. It's like, so you have to be a total sort of, you really need to be passionately interested in sort of the nitty gritty of all the algorithms and understand what kind of cables you need.
Exactly, minimizing fiber cable lengths and whatnot.
Yeah, I remember listening to a talk by someone at NASDAQ, that was saying that the frequency of the algorithms are so fast that they now have to start upgrading the whole sort of setup in the server hall, because it turned out that the people who build HFT algorithms are really sort of into the details, and they had found out that the sort of entrance point for the trades into the actual trading system, there were 2 entrances, and it was a little bit random. So even if you were first, you might end up in a queue. So they needed to start looking into upgrading their sort of entry points because they couldn't handle the speed.
So it's like 1 millisecond or less slower, and then it's horrible.
Yeah, there was like a mu seconds.
Nanoseconds.
Nanoseconds,
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, I call them mu seconds apparently.
It's a weird business for sure.
But and what do you think is the next level of AI in the trading? It's because we also talk about the highest robotic approaches, and now we have more fundamental approaches, or more we can analyze sentiment. What happens when we start merging? What's the next level of AI in trading, you think? Where is this going the next couple of years?
Yeah.
What's the trend?
I think it's going to trend differently in different regions, because I think it's starting to come into like the kind of ethical value driven area. Sorry. I think I think the funky data addition is going to change a lot.
And what do you mean with that? Yeah, what do you mean with that?
So I mean stuff like satellite images of parking lots. I mean weather data, predicting.
It's more driver-based data that you connect to the rest of the fundamentals you have.
Yeah.
So you can basically see trends where this is actually not in reality working so well because they have no customers.
Yeah.
Parking lot, empty parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I think in the like happy 80s, I think the way that a fund manager could get information was to sort of speak to the CEO or speak to someone in the senior management and really listen and understand where the company was going. But nowadays, everybody's really trained for that kind of situation, and it's really difficult to get any kind of alpha signal from sort of the human interaction.
Well, actually, they know how to manipulate the signal to send the right signal.
Yeah. So then it becomes sort of, I mean, that's, if you like hunting, it's quite a fun thing because you're kind of hunting alpha continuously. And I like that. So,
and this also goes back to your thesis student and, having some kind of recommender system potentially to help people know what fund to buy or what not.
You're going to look for funky data. I'm starting to pick out what this thesis is all about. This is super cool.
Parking lot recommender system. That's the way
we
to
think
go.
you should park over here.
What's the
Not
best?
scary at all.
How do we profile IKEA with funky data? I love it. Oh, by the way, they're not traded.
Yeah.
But if you were to still recommend some person that is interested in stock trading or buying funds or for retirement or whatnot, what would be your advice? If you think like index funds versus different types of funds or perhaps some more AI type of funds. I'm not sure if SEB has any
tech funds,
like AI, more or less like funds that use AI to actually.
Okay, you mean like that?
Yeah. This is going to be a really boring answer. I'm not allowed to give financial advice. I'm really sorry. And it's we can take that offline.
Take some more wine.
Take some more wine, and then the real conversation starts at 9, guys. I'm sorry.
Okay, but we respect that, of course.
Perfect answer.
But I think it's really interesting to have something else than just looking at technical and something else than just looking at fundamentals, but actually using recommender systems that can personalize recommendations.
Yeah.
I think that's a new, third view that I think is missing a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that view will become more and more important when we basically want to save the earth at the same time. And some people care and other people don't care. And actually we can choose to vote with our wallet if we have those kind of recommender systems in place. Yeah. I think that's completely aligned with where where the whole world needs to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, and I think we went through your background a bit then. So you had your PhD, a lot of math and hedge fund programming and algorithmic, and then it was SEB, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
and you've been there for some time now?
Forever. No, next year it's actually a decade.
Ooh, interesting.
So 1 decade of math, 1 decade of finance.
Can you perhaps talk a bit about how did you get started at SEB?
Yeah. So I was headhunted. To this day, I don't know who recommended me. I was working in the small hedge fund. I felt like I was sitting in a cupboard just having fun and being quite invisible. So it was a surprise when I was contacted by the headhunter, and I started working for fund risk, so as a quant. Doing sort of tracking error modeling, loads of different regulations coming in and building sort of the calculations for that. And I think I was really fortunate because when I started, the person who hired me apparently talked to the fund company and said that they think that I'll be tired of this fund risk stuff within like a year or two, and they need to prepare for sort of hiring me. Because otherwise she'll leave the bank, and this was very unbeknownst to me. And that actually
they had a plan for you.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
It's super cool, and that actually ended up happening. So after like a year, I started to talk to the investment management company, and there was a position in the index and solutions team. So I started as like a fixed income sidekick to this wonderful person who's a fixed income portfolio manager. And then after a while, the team lead resigned. And I was asked if I wanted to take that position. And it was the first time I was a manager, so it took me like 6 months to dare to say I'm the head. Yeah. And that was really, really fun to be an index portfolio manager because you have some trades that you can do very, very small, keeping your clients safe, but there are some things that you can do to create small alpha that can compensate for the fee that we have to take to sort of cover for our salaries and systems and trading costs.
And now we used the word alpha a couple of times, so maybe explaining what is alpha.
Yes. So beta is typically following the market index.
Yes.
And alpha is what is sort of over after you deduct the performance of the market index.
So alpha is everything above index.
Yeah. And everything below, I guess.
We don't want to know about.
Yeah, that's your friend's algorithm.
You never beat the index anyway. I think it's so frustrating.
So he was alpha, beta, was
Gamma?
Gamma, right? So he had a gamma. By the way, we don't want to have gamma indexes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
ALMA is super interesting, and I guess working in the bank industry is interesting, but also has some challenges, I guess. And it's these kind of big companies. It's hard to perhaps have a kind of innovative working environment, and you're basically driving the data drivenness in SEB now, right?
Yeah, or very much sort of focused on machine learning and visualization. We have other people in the team that sort of do data management and data governance and data quality and all of those things. So we're more kind of the I don't know, creative support that can help to create some sort of business value.
But how has that journey been? I mean, you've been there 10 years. Do you think it's easier today to be more innovative, to be more data-driven, to use AI to a larger extent than previously?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for myself, when I was a fund manager, my colleague and I got frustrated that there was this sort of mantra going on that it costs like hundreds of millions of crowns to create AI systems, and we can never do that. Google is going to take over, or some other tech company, and we just need to I don't know, give up. Yeah. And so my colleague is also a fund manager, and we got a bit frustrated. We're both kind of math geeks. So then we built a recommender engine just to showcase that it's actually possible to do. And we did that.
Work even.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly. So we had something called the Innovation Lab inside the bank at the time. And that was kind of, you could come with an idea, you pitched it, and then you got I think 6 weeks plus 6 weeks to create something. And that's what we did. We signed up, and then we were we called it Sebflix.
Sebflix.
Yeah. And then I wanted to do much more sort of big data stuff. It was sort of starting to hype a little bit, and I said that I would really like to at least get some time to just do some research and start to analyze what the benefits would be. But I wasn't allowed to, because I was an index fund manager. So then I decided to do something different. And I realized that I like skiing. So initially I signed up to be the senior risk manager for private banking, because they have an office in Geneva.
The reasoning here is awesome.
I love it. Completely rational.
Yeah.
Skiing is better.
Yeah. But 6 months into that position, the head of counterparty risk modeling quit, and my friend and colleague asked me if I would be willing to apply for that position, and I somehow forgot about the skiing, and so then I started working with that. So it's sort of, counterparty risk is, you have to keep track of the derivatives portfolio of your clients. In case they go bankrupt, we need to know how much we need to repay. So it's kind of an inverse almost. And there's a lot of math in that, because there's a lot of Monte Carlo simulations.
You just don't put a minus sign before the other algo. It's like my friend, who did that. It didn't work that well, but
No. Yeah, and I mean, it's a very important part that we keep track of that risk in our portfolio.
Yep. But can we be a little bit concrete on a couple of different levels now? Because I'm curious to understand how this works. Okay, your role right now as a group data scientist, how is this organized in SEB? Because I think a lot of enterprises trying to find their feet, how to look federated or not, and like this. So how does it work? A little bit more concrete.
So concretely, there's 11 people in my team, and we exist to support different parts of the bank when they have some data that they want us to look at.
Okay.
The sort of maturity level of different parts of the organization is very different.
Yeah, of course.
So in some parts we have kind of resident data scientists that already work in that part.
The more mature.
Yeah. And we might have some places where we have quants that could become data scientists within like 6 months. And if they're interested, the kind of data science community is there for that purpose, so that we can find areas that people want to learn together, or have reading groups, or everything is possible. So it's, I mean, so that's sort of organizationally, I think it works well in SEB, because for me, what's kind of specific about SEB is that I think that there's 15,000 employees, and I think that there's 15,000 entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So every single person has their own sort of idea of what we should be doing, and most of them are really, really engaged, really sort of energetic, and I think it's so, nothing makes me happier than when someone has a great idea, or just an idea. It doesn't have to be great. It's just like, you have an idea, you voice it, and someone listens to you. That's very empowering. So in some areas we have sort of completely self-driven strategies where they're doing data management and governance and everything themselves, and they're excelling. Other areas we have people doing algorithmic sort of stuff, and if they get stuck, they can always contact us, and we have like a sounding board more. And then areas where they don't even know what the possibilities are.
So then you step in and be more active.
Yeah.
And how is this who are you organized under? Or how, in SEB, how does it work? Where do you sit in the organization?
So I currently, I and the chief data officer and the sort of domain lead for data and processes, we report to Martin Johansson, who's a senior advisor to the CEO.
Okay, so you're not part of the IT organization as such, or is this part of IT? How does it work?
No, he's not. So we used to be part of technology, and I think in some sense we still are. But for me, it's very unclear where you should place the data scientists organization, because, and there, once again, I think it needs to depend on
the context of the company.
The context and the culture. Because I think data scientists are not tech people necessarily. I think data scientists are, in some cases, they should be much closer to business. And we have a lot of data scientists in the business divisions. And in some cases, it's almost like a machine learning engineer, but there's a gray zone, and there you could very well have some of them working in more of the technology division.
The classical Conway-Venn diagram here.
Yes, we talked about this quite a bit. The Conway diagram, if you go there first, and then understanding also data scientist, what's the difference between a machine learning engineer versus data scientist, advanced analytics versus MLOps. Yep. I think those small intricate differences is quite important to start to learn about, because it has impact on how we organize. So maybe which one we should, if we want to go there, or?
Yeah, just briefly, they have this classical Venn diagram that basically have three parts, which is the theoretical part, the engineering part, and some kind of domain expertise. And a data scientist needs to know everything, and there is no such person.
No.
And
so we end up that we need cross-functional teams to excel, right?
Yeah.
And then how to organize this smartly, which is, of course, when we have nobody, it's maybe better to have them centrally, and then you can embed them more and more. But to embed a data scientist and they have no knowledge of how to use a data scientist is really hard.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking about organization. I think this is an important topic that I think a lot of companies can, think about and learn from. But you can think about different ways to organize data science teams. One is to have a central team only and just do that, and then everyone goes through that as soon as you want to do something data and AI type of process, or you can go the other extreme, which is everything is embedded and the data scientist is a part of some kind of product team or finance team or whatever, sales team, and they help them in different ways. And I think both have pros and cons, but what's your thought about this? How can we find, the best type of organization to really accelerate AI throughout an organization?
The $1 million question.
It is one of them.
Yeah. No, but... So I think depending on the culture of the organization, if it's very sort of people listen to the top management and they just execute on what they're told to do, then probably the central team is going to be the best one. Whereas if you have more of a decentralized organization where people don't necessarily do what they're told to, then you might need to have more people in the different divisions or business areas. But I think there's one aspect that you lose if you do completely decentralized, and that's the governance part. That's the kind of ethical framework that you want your algorithms to move around. That's all of the sort of how should we be deploying stuff? You're going to end up with as many different solutions as you have humans in worst case, and that won't scale. So there are some parts where it's kind of comply or die, and some parts where you can be as creative as you want to.
And I think this is a super important topic, and it has a huge, context is also how large the enterprise is and how many business domains you have and stuff like this. But I working at Vattenfall and working a lot with Scania right now, I can tell you both very decentralized cultures. A central culture will never work. You need to be very, very close to the main problem to solve it. On the other hand, if we want to truly share data and do the contextual, funky data stuff, you kind of need to have your central frameworks so you can basically use the data. So then the federated approach, something what I think I hear between the... I've been the most closest to this one, and also it's a little bit like, it's about the federation because we are decentralized, but it's also about the maturity. Where do you start and where do you want it to end up? So I think it's a beautiful model that you are describing, that if you go for it, and I couldn't be more happier if you can graduate from the central team into an embedded team when they are ready to take you on.
Yeah.
So I think it sounds pretty smart.
I mean, it sounds like a hybrid approach. More or less,
and I
right?
think this is very, very important to understand. That in the large enterprise, the fundamental problem to do really, really cool stuff will be how will I get the data that is produced in one domain team to flow to the other team. Okay, so then even if we are working with data products or analytical products out here, we kind of need to have the same data catalog, right? We kind of need to have some of the fundamentals that basically makes data sharing possible in a safe way and in a fast way. So that I can't get away from that. Okay, building central monoliths, it's not really going to work either, right? I have a hard time not ending up sort of in this neighborhood.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, data catalog to some extent, I guess.
That was an example, right?
Yeah, I'm going to humble brag. I was at MIT last year.
Yes, so cool.
I was invited to a panel at this wonderful conference called CDO-IQ. So it's like chief data analytics officers, I guess I'm that, and chief data officers, and just people who work with data in big organizations in the US. And it's like it's really, really good. It was founded by Richard Wang, who's like one of the absolute leaders within sort of data organizations. And he's the coolest guy ever. He's like really, really, really nice and really happy all the time. So it gives a lot of energy to talk to him. And there, a lot of the people were talking about exactly this. Like, even when it comes to your data, you need to kind of structure it in sort of in different levels. So you have kind of the group common information that you need in order to be able to connect different things. And then you have the sort of less group common, but probably business common data sets. And then you have the sort of funky stuff that I use to look at sustainability for Inner Mongolia, and that's it.
Super niched.
Yeah, and maybe we don't start there. So it is very sort of, even there, it's quite good to have like the same kind of hybrid approach where you have individuals that actually work in the business that love data, and you allow them to work with the data over time so that they do all the quality and cataloging and stuff. And then you just need to figure out how to make them connect to each other.
So in short, would you agree with the central team can govern the data and the processes and the best practices in a good way, but what really also make it scale throughout the company is to have like AI-enabled teams or domain experts, right?
Yeah.
You need both.
Yeah.
You kind of need both.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, what role does a central team play versus the local team? Because so when if you really think that we all mature, then the central team is more about serving and having the frameworks and having the methodologies, and less about building the data product that's happening somewhere else.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, you probably need to help build the data product as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say that since it's such a big area and it moves so fast, I would say that there's also the kind of the need to keep track of what's going on out there.
Yes.
So almost like just keeping track of what a researcher is talking about, what kind of algorithms are trending right now, what kind of technology is there that we could look into applying.
So this is another mission for the central team
Yeah.
to really get the best of the best in,
Yeah.
and then diffuse it out in the community.
Yeah, get the best of the best in, but also encourage individuals in the organization that aren't necessarily in the group team to also be curious and to be able to funnel that information to each other.
Yeah, but then you also highlight that the central team has actually a responsibility to manage and maintain the community.
Yeah.
That's a key topic in itself.
Yes, the humans.
Humans.
And thinking more about how to be data driven, but perhaps also data or AI driven in a company like SAB. I guess we could talk about like AI strategies, or if they have some
Yes.
kind of well thought out plan from an
Yeah.
organizational point of view to start with, at least.
AI strategies.
Yes.
Next topic. Love it.
Is there such a strategy, or is it? Do you have in SAB some kind of idea of what the strategy should be to accelerate AI in SAB?
Yeah, so we did some work on that last year, and I think we found I didn't realize it at the time, but someone told me that it's brilliant, and it wasn't just my idea. There was a big working group of experts doing this, but we've decided to have a strategy that's simple. The strategy is just that we integrate into the business plan. So we have the business strategy.
Let's, explore that a bit more. What do you mean?
Yeah. So you have the business strategy. People are used to doing their sort of yearly planning. They have a good process for that. They do that. And what we want to add now is that once they're done with that, they think about what data do we need in order to actually achieve our business strategy.
As a normal part of
Yeah.
building the business
Yeah.
strategy, you
Yeah.
also consider data and AI.
Yeah, it's like a small add-on. It's like, okay, so what data do we need in order to be, better at something? And then, okay, so are there any kind of machine learning things that we should be doing? Is there some sort of an AI system that we could look into acquiring or using in order to accelerate the business plan even further? So it could be like one of our aims is to create operational excellence. And that means that we want to increase efficiency, we want to use our data in better ways or more ways, and we want to create processes that are as lean as possible. And in there you can just start to feel how many different kinds of algorithms you could be applying.
So what is the AI perspective of reaching that business strategy?
Yeah. So the AI, that specific business strategy, I would say that it's a lot about adding smartness to automation, for instance.
Yeah.
It's a lot about actually focusing on, removing as many manual processes as possible, but like identifying areas where it's fine that the probability isn't 100 all the time. So it's very much that in that specific area. Then when it comes to like advisory excellence, then you have all the different kinds of advices that you want to give the clients and all of the sort of recommender engine-ish perspectives.
But this really resonates with me, and personally I've had a quite hard time when I hear the management consultants talk about you need your AI strategy in order to work. And in Vattenfall, we actually made on group level, on the presentation to the board, we made a declaration that is going very closely in this direction. And we say there is no AI strategy. There's only business strategy attuned for a AI-ready world. So I think it's exactly the same, that we need to start with the business problem we are trying to solve and then understand the AI applications out of that. Of course, then someone will argue, but what's your tactics to implement or to mature AI? That's what we mean with strategy. Do you have something like that? More like how to, but you're more pushing it that we really need to find a business problem that could work, or?
Yeah.
Because what is an AI strategy? I mean, start even there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would say that probably in the AI strategy, it's important to identify what areas will be relevant for financial services.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we never, probably we never want to do facial recognition because that wouldn't make sense for us. Probably self-driving cars, not sure that's going to be our core product going forward. So I think it's very much that sort of identifying what areas we believe would be beneficial for the business strategy and for the business as a whole. I don't know if that's...
But you said something earlier before. We can... You had some insights into the AI strategy of Finland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is if we segue from
Could we do
SEB
that?
as an organization and think more nationally.
But still AI strategy. But you said something to us, before the camera was on. Components of what makes it successful is also something about AI strategy without, so maybe we could go here.
Because you do have a Finnish background as well,
Yeah.
and Finland has their AI strategy, and Sweden has, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
so let's
Finland is ahead. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, I think definitely. So I met with a person who was working with the AI strategy of Finland when I was there a couple of years ago. I go home more often than twice every second year. So I met with him and we were kind of discussing what the work entailed that they did and what because he was very proud of the work that they've done, and I completely agree. I think what they came up with in the AI strategy, it's very crisp. There's a clear financing for it. There's a clear sort of focus, and the kind of centers that they created for the AI strategy to be enabled, they were given some sort of power to actually force other parts of the society to change. And I think one of the first things they did was that they funded this AI, I guess, recommender system for life, where you can come in and you sort of describe your life situation, and then you get all of the different governmental benefits that you can get. You get all the rules that you need to adhere to. You get a really good sort of
What a
feeling.
simple product.
Yeah. And quite often the simplicity is where the keys lie. And I think it was really smart to do that as the first part of the AI strategy, because you're winning some positive emotion from the citizens of the country as well. You're building something that's immediately beneficial for them. So it becomes less scary.
But there is a couple of things, sorry. I mean, here we have an AI strategy, but actually the way they frame it is also, it's a little bit strategy to execution.
Yeah.
That what's the financing behind it? Can we please put some action behind the words and some resources behind the words? So in this sense, I guess to formulate an AI strategy with substance is quite interesting what they've done in Finland.
Yeah. And I guess, from an organizational perspective, the budget would be expected to follow the business plan.
Yes.
Whereas from a governmental perspective,
How do you do
it's steered in such a different way.
Yes.
You actually need to have a proper focused budget for building a center where you do AI and you exist in order to educate others on AI.
But that's maybe the downside or the problem, catch-22, with having a business-centric AI strategy. If the business is not so data savvy, so they can formulate AI opportunities.
Yeah.
But then you need to help them a lot there, I guess.
Yeah, we do.
You do?
Yeah, and I think we're trying to not build huge organizations anymore. We're trying to much more create sort of ambassadors and people who just fall in love with some topic, and giving them the time to learn a little bit about it and become sort of the internal spokespeople.
Yeah, evangelists style.
Yeah, a little bit. Evangelists, or just super nerdy people who have no communication skills but are really interested. For me, it's more that. You don't need to be
And moving a bit to Sweden then, we have met a number of times in various events, and especially the AI agenda work, I think, that you were a central part of as well. And perhaps can move a bit into the AI agenda. Can you speak to a bit about, what is the purpose and what has been done and things like that?
Yeah. So, the AI agenda is coordinated by RISE. I think in the beginning we were kind of discussing the issue with not having an AI strategy in Sweden.
We have something in Sweden called nationell inriktning, I think it's called, but it's not backed by budget.
So what is a national AI strategy? How would we frame it? What do we think that consists of? Because you can have inriktning, for me it's a little bit fluffy. What do we mean with an AI strategy for let's start there, the AI agenda. What's the purpose and what?
For me, you can fill in then, but at least having a strategy that is backed by some funding and some action points.
So basically, strategy cannot only be words; it needs to be backed with fundamentals like funding. Otherwise, we don't have a strategy. So words or a report without funding is not an AI strategy, is it?
That's just a report.
It's just a report, right?
So many reports. But there are good reports, though.
So the definition of a proper AI strategy is it has to be something, a direction, but there is substance to execute on it. Otherwise, it's not really a strategy. Or?
I would say so, yeah.
I think so
I
too.
mean, if you look at like some of the countries' AI strategies, France's is probably the craziest one because it's written by a mathematician.
It's really cool, by the way.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
It's super cool. But Germany's is sort of really focused on the automotive industry because that's the main sector for Germany. And then they speak a lot about what they don't want people to do within that area and what they think people should be doing, like within the AI area. Finland is quite the same. It's like it's really well sort of defined these areas. We believe AI is beneficial for these areas. We believe that we should be focusing on them, and here's money, and here's the possibility to build.
And
a
both
center
private
focusing
sector
on
and
that.
public sector.
Yeah.
Like a state AI strategy needs
Yeah.
to have a view on how to support private and public, maybe.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, they created something similar to AI Sweden, but I think with a bit more punch, potentially. Not
It's
because...
called a AI hub or something, or what's it
Yeah,
called?
yeah. And this has not, I'm not saying in any way whatsoever that the people working in AI Sweden, they're very, very competent. I'm talking about the budget, just to be clear.
I'm part of that. So. No, just to mention France, I think they've done a number of awesome things, and Germany and UK as well with the sector deal and whatnot. But
tell us a little bit, because I
but
don't-
these mathematicians.
Yeah, tell us about this story, because I don't think so
Cedric,
many people...
Villani,
Villani,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I remember he actually came to AI Sweden once and spoke, and then we had some
You
Swedish.
missed
No, but he was very inspiring, and it was really fun to listen to him, and you can tell he's very knowledgeable, of course, as well.
But what's the twist here? Like, educate us on what's the France strategy in a nutshell. So how is it different when a mathematician writes it?
It's 300 pages.
Go nerdy, right? Love it.
Yeah.
And a lot of funding. I think it's up to like 3 billion euros or something. It's a lot of money. But the AI agenda. Then I think we shouldn't complain about the Swedish approach a lot. I think we are doing a lot of good things, especially in the latest times.
Yeah.
That are moving in a very good direction, I think.
Yeah.
And just speaking about the AI agenda a bit more, so it started for a year ago or something, or what was it?
Something. I think that we had like the formal kickoff in Almedalen, and then so we decided to split it up into different work streams. One of them was industry, thinking about like the potential of AI applications in industry, and I was the work stream coordinator, and you were part of that work stream, giving very good and valid suggestions and advice.
One more glass of wine to her.
Yeah, please, sir.
And then like research and education and infrastructure and sort of the public space and us as citizens. And I think it's been a really cool journey because in the beginning there was maybe not so many people, and then it's a completely open collaboration. So whoever's interested is kind of invited to join a relevant work stream where you feel that you can sort of contribute. And I think for me personally, the biggest sort of eye-opener was when Elin Alsiok joined our team. So she comes from this Stolthetsbyrån. She doesn't have a specific background in AI, but she very much brought in sort of the human aspects. And I hadn't realized how geeky we were because it was just people working with AI in the industry work stream. And I think getting Elin in and her questioning us very friendlily about what we were talking about, I think it was really good in order to make the AI agenda pedagogical because, it's meant to be for everyone.
Right.
I don't know if you agree.
Absolutely. And then, I'm a very geeky person as well, so it's so hard sometimes to have the bigger picture and be able to communicate it in proper terms, so to speak.
Yeah, how to communicate it in a good pedagogical way without dumbing down the real complexity. Not simplifying in the wrong way. This is hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we started for over a year ago. We had a number of groups. We put together this kind of report, a presentation. It was presented to the Swedish Parliament, right? Yeah. And it's going to Brussels now, right?
Yeah, it's really fun.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's like I think there's like 50 people or something in the collaboration, and people with completely different backgrounds, completely different interests. We have the trade unions are part of it, so it's really this wonderful opportunity to have very sort of high level and deep discussions about what we should be doing with AI in Sweden, and kind of identifying areas that we believe that we should change in some way or would benefit from doing things in other ways than we do them today. And I think the kind of current result of that is that we have a concrete AI agenda. It exists as a physical document.
A manifesto almost.
Yeah, almost. And
a web page.
Yeah,
a web page.
Yeah. And a web page. And it's really good for like, I mean, there's a lot of opinion making going on about AI, and some of it is very detrimental because it's not based on facts. And then it's quite nice to have this document that anyone who wants to, for instance, respond to an EU white paper or wants to lobby or talk to people about the potential possibilities with AI, you have this document, and it's not for signing, it's for using, and it's probably going to change over time as well.
Yeah. And we also have this list of action points, which I think is important. You know, if you want to have some kind of strategy that actually can be executed, like a set of, I think it's 28 different suggestions that we have provided so far.
Yeah.
And how in practice? Good. So there's some. I mean, like who is funding it, or how do we fund the actual work gets done, or is it all on voluntary basis? I don't know the background.
I mean, it's both in kind, of course, from a lot of companies, both in industry and academia and public sector. But it's otherwise financed by Vinnova, of course.
Yeah, Vinnova,
the government-based innovation agency. So it has some proper funding. And I think it's just important and great that we did recognize the problem and are executing on it, and in a rather short period of time have actually been able to produce quite a lot of work, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I kind of like the Swedish approach. It's like getting consensus on different questions, but doing it super fast. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm kind of hesitating if we should go to the EU sector and all the white papers that
we
has
can
been.
Go and ask what's the EU AI strategy, or then we are done with this and we leave it.
I'm not sure. What do you think? I think you should leave it up to Salla if we want to go to EU or not.
We want to lift the AI strategy to the EU level as well. A couple of minutes. Do we have a view on this?
Maybe a couple of minutes.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, my short feeling is that the EU is focusing very much on the ethical implications.
Yeah, really.
And I think in some sense that's really good because
but
it brings it up onto the table, and potentially that could be what makes the EU AI sphere okay, and maybe survive competition even, because there's something to be said about ethical implications.
But we have talked a lot about the AI divide to try to understand what it really means for society when we have some superpowers and if we sort of highlight the investments and the number of research papers coming out, or like where the real knowledge is, and there are some different agendas being driven. You know, in one agenda in China, the agenda is like quite different, corporate America, and to find then, you know, how do we build Europe as part of the future, and how do we build our societies to be, you know, to shrink the AI divide? And we talk about all the stuff around, do we need a European cloud, or, you know?
I mean, just to paint a picture a bit what we mean with AI divide, and then to hear what you think about, you know, how can we do it from a Swedish and European point of view. And one view that a lot of people are speaking about is that US and China are so far ahead, and it's no point, as you said before, to even try because,
go home and die.
And that's, of course, a really, really strange attitude to have.
And we think it's really scary, right? Because it's segregating the world in a very scary way.
But the AI divide can be defined, I think, differently. I think it's wrong to say it's like the whole country of US or the whole country of China that is leading. It's really rather the tech giants. It's the Google, the Facebook, the Microsoft, the Amazons. Or
what do we
Alibaba,
call it now?
Tencent.
We don't call it, we got a new...
GAFA, or the latest is...
Fat Man.
No,
Fat Man. Have you heard the new one?
Yeah, Fat Man. Right.
So what's the acronym for the tech giants? Fat Man. Yeah. Facebook...
Tencent,
Alphabet, Alibaba, you know, but it's just like I don't know if it was a joke, but Fat Man is the new one.
There's been a number of acronyms for the tech giants, in short, and it keeps coming new ones all the time. But it is a big problem. I don't think people realize how far ahead the tech giants are, and the Google and the Facebook and the Tencents and Alibabas and Baidu and whatnot. And then the question is really, what should we do about it? And one way, you can show what the most valuable companies in the world are today, and it is the tech giants, of course.
Mm-hmm.
In even if you take any kind of sector, oil, finance, and whatnot, it is the tech giants that are the most valuable companies of all. But then if you look at Europe, and you take the top 10 most valuable companies, there is not a single tech company. It's oil companies, it's finance companies, it's automotive companies, but no tech company in that sense. And it's a bit scary. And I think we need to do something. For one, do you agree with the concept of AI divide and that it potentially is a problem, you would say?
Yes, I agree. I saw today in Financial Times that Facebook has been sued by I think it was 46 states in the U.S. For violating sort of a lot of laws when it comes to, the acquisitions of WhatsApp and Instagram. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens there, because they have such an information advantage to any other company in the world, and the question is whether that's a good thing. And I think it's good that they're finally starting to look into that from a legal standpoint. The U.S. is very different from the EU because the legal landscape is defined by verdicts. And it's not like here
Case
where
law.
we spend strokey beard time thinking about what kind of law we need for this area, and then we have consensus, and then we have a very different way of working in the EU.
And I think, for one, it's the antitrust kind of case where you have these big companies, but I think it's more than that. It's like a democracy kind of question when a company can direct basically the opinions of a lot of people, like Facebook can, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's, I met with Christopher Wiley a couple of years ago at this event, and I sort of attacked him with 1,000 questions.
Christopher Wiley.
I think he was a bit scared by me. He was the head of analytics at Cambridge Analytica.
Oh, great.
And he
Fun position to have.
Yeah, he decided to go.
And in the middle of it all, you had the opportunity to talk to.
No, it was after. He resigned. So he worked at that time. He was working for H&M. As a researcher for sort of identifying what they shouldn't be doing.
What they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool. But he had a lot of really interesting opinions about that. Because I asked him, does he think that GDPR has changed the landscape for these tech companies? And he said no. No,
and we say the same. GDPR is actually right now increasing the AI divide, because if you're super knowledgeable, you know how to work around it very professional. And you the intent, you can circumvent the intent.
The big tech giants have the legal resources. They have the
and the
infrastructure,
competence
so
how
they
to do it.
know how to comply with the regulation, but
And
most other companies don't.
And and the rest who doesn't really know what it means, just get scared. And it's really only GDPR is benefiting fat man more than anyone.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I think so. Yeah, I remember a Finnish-Swedish CEO for another bank saying that he loves regulations because it sort of it kills competition. Yeah, I'm not going to name his name because that would be probably slander.
But when back now, context then, AI divide. What should Europe do? From this perspective, what is our AI strategy all about?
Yeah.
And to some degree, maybe we should use pumping money to build the European cloud. I don't know. But then we say, come on, you will never be able to do it in the same way. So what is the AI strategy in Europe? What it should be, and what is really important? I don't know.
Yeah, I think one central part is the infrastructure. That is somewhere that we're sort of losing to national competition in other nations in the world.
What do you mean, like the cloud vendors? What do you mean with infrastructure?
Yeah. The cloud vendors. What do I mean? The cloud vendors. The sort of computational power doesn't necessarily have to be even a cloud. It can just be like a lot of servers. But
so now we are investing in HPC, right?
Yeah.
In Europe.
Yep.
Interesting choice as well.
Yeah.
And Finland is leading the way there, by the way, with Lumi and the new big data cluster from in Euro HPC.
NVIDIA stuff, right? Or no?
Yes. It's there as well. So it's kind of super pod of.
But and here, of course, is HPC the right way to pump money into, or is it something else we should do? Maybe we should build our own big data cloud.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think we could just go all in on Raspberry Pis. We just need to be really smart at coding the algorithms, and then we can build really sustainable algorithms.
Federated learning.
Exactly.
And a couple of ideas that have been floating around with some of the guests is like, well, maybe we can't compete on the general public cloud, but maybe we could make super niched the best of the best for automotive, or the best of the best type of, here's the place you want to be if you're in pharma, something like this.
Yeah.
So you take the public cloud, but you make it something else that fits sort of Europe.
Yeah.
Just to make another play.
But seriously, if you were to think about, perhaps not SEB, because it's a big company, they have their own infrastructure and AI strategy, which most other companies don't. So they're a good example in that case. But for a lot of other companies that want to get started with data and AI, there are a lot of problems, just access to data or infrastructure to process it properly and whatnot, and all the knowledge needed to actually know what to do and how to build models and so forth. So if you were to guide, you've been working with this for a long time, and if someone wants to get started quickly, how would you recommend like a Swedish company to get more onto track to be data-driven and AI-driven?
Good question. I think I would recommend identifying individuals that are already doing machine learning in their spare time, because I can guarantee you that there's at least one person in your organization, no matter how small, because it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And then I would start small. I think the key is to not start with all of your data and building the full infrastructure and all the solutions that you need. Quite often it's like the simplest first model that gives the most
I love you. We love you already. And it's how can we get the enterprises to understand, start with one use case and try to understand that data. And everybody who thinks they can take all data at once, they don't understand what they're going through. Yeah. You will never succeed. Yeah. Why do we do it in the big enterprises? Why do we start in this way?
I think it's because it's the way that enterprises used to be driven. It was like this huge ship, and then in order you needed to turn the whole ship.
so to do lean startup or to do innovation inside a big enterprise, how to think about that, how to make that machinery scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so common that you hear other companies say, we need to first get the hold of analytics. We need to first build the pipelines. We need to first have the dashboards. we can't use AI until we have that.
I need to clean all data before we start. Good luck with that, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah, I have this small funky data here. I'll come back in 2 years. We don't know what it's about, but it's probably important.
But how do you get around that? I'm like, okay, so
I think she said a good answer for that. Start small and use the thing you have and find the data that you potentially have today and start experimenting.
So we love skunk work almost.
Yeah, I guess so. I do.
I love skunk work.
Yeah, I think so. It's so much fun. Yeah.
And we sometimes use the term analytical ladder, and taking step by step until you at one point you start using AI, and it's kind of a dangerous view to have, right?
I think so.
You heard about the analytical ladder.
Yeah, okay, perhaps it's time for the next topic, but awesome to hear that you think in this way. I think that's a really good advice, and certainly agree a lot with that. Coming back, before we leave math, I think we spoke a bit about math before, and I started to speak about some kind of philosophical kind of questions about and
the beauty of math.
The beauty of math, and there is this quote from Immanuel Kant, philosopher. He basically says that is it a thing in itself? So the question is then, is math a thing in itself? And I guess one way to phrase it is, do you discover math or do you invent math? Is it something that already exists that you discover, or do you actually create math? What do you think?
That's such a good question. I think as an individual, I think you, as an individual, if you like mathematics, you discover it as you go along. I'm reminded of this. I was taking a course for my supervisor, and I think this was probably the point when I decided I wanted to do whatever I could to do a thesis for her. She had, it was a course in complex analysis, and there was an engineering student who wanted to know how to calculate the residue of something. And she said, oh, I don't remember. And then she started from scratch. She was like, okay, so f is a function, and then she started doing the whole calculation to understand what the residue was. And I remember the engineer being like, oh my God, she's so stupid, she doesn't even know the answer. Whereas for me, this was the right way of doing it. It's like, if you're a really good theoretical mathematician...
You derive it.
Yeah, you can derive kind of anything from just like the axioms that define what a point is and a line is. And from there, it's like, it's this beautiful world that just unfolds.
Yeah. And just a bit more philosophical things. If you take like the Gödel fork, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
No,
it was this kind of thing where a lot of mathematicians were really upset in the 1930s or something, because he proved that mathematics is not complete and consistent. And
but
it's similar to the halting problem, if you heard about that. So,
no, sorry.
So Alan Turing defined this kind of thing where he could mathematically prove that it's impossible to prove that if a computer program will halt or not in some way. And he does that by simply having this kind of self-reference kind of thing, and he can show it's impossible. And basically that was Gödel's theory as well. He can easily say that anything that have the right axioms, like the piano axioms or these kind of, if you can define natural numbers, you can show that any kind of language in math that can handle that is either incomplete or inconsistent.
Ooh, nice.
And that basically means math is incomplete.
Yeah.
And that's very upsetting, right? to some mathematicians at least. Right?
Salla, please disagree here. we want argument if you think he's bullshitting, because I can't follow this right now.
Yeah, no, I'm reminded of this. There was this big discussion when the Hilbert axioms were created. So one of the axioms was, I think, the parallelity axiom. So it says that it's possible to create two lines that are parallel and therefore will never meet. But it turns out that if you treat that as, if you can create a universe where that happens, then there must also exist a universe where they always meet. So every single parallel line will meet at some point. And then I think it's quite fun to think about, like, I guess it's Einstein who talks about the compactness of the universe, and that would be exactly the explanation to why you could never have two parallel lines that never meet, because the universe is compact, so at some stage they will come back.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. It's super interesting. And you can continue the discussion from Einstein to quantum theory and whatnot, and say, is the world really non-deterministic? Something that I have a really hard time accepting.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about that, or?
No, I have an anecdote to to come with. Apparently, like just the recent days, there's some Israeli security expert who has written a book, and he said that aliens exist and we're in touch with them, and there's like a council of aliens that humans are part of. Super cool. So we'll see.
But you said before, I think it's before we started, like one of the things that really got you into math, or actually that you stayed in math, was the beauty of it. So how would you describe the beauty of math to someone who's not into math? How would you try to put words to, what do you mean with that?
Yeah. So I think the further you come into theoretical mathematics, the more philosophical it becomes. And when you're working in kind of, this is going to sound really pretentious, when you're working in higher dimensional places that you can't, you can draw because you have some sort of intuition about how stuff works, but you can't really see it because it's too many dimensions for you to be able to perceive.
So you're now talking mathematical dimensions, and how many dimensions do we perceive? 3?
Yeah, probably 4, because
4, time, 3 plus time.
Something like that. But I think...
And in mathematics you can...
you just abstract it to loads of different dimensions, and as a theoretical mathematician, you don't care about those dimensions, what they actually do. They just exist. There's like k dimensions. But I think it becomes, I think my brain is wired so that it feels very calm when it's allowed to think about mathematical questions, because it's like it's filling my brain with a lot of information so that I can... Yeah, it's like going into this beautiful world.
It's almost meditation.
Yeah.
But so when you say philosophical, in what way do you think, could you explain that in another way? So is it like really like you're getting down to very fundamental questions, I guess, or what do you mean?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because I didn't do like hardcore analysis, and if you do that, then it's like sitting and computing very hard and trying to be innovative about what kind of tools you could be using to connect things to. But with geometry, it's at some stage you usually go back to wait. What is a point? And it gets like
What
really
is the point with a point?
yeah, and you have to really rely on the absolute foundations of the sort of reality that you've chosen at some stage.
So you get very soon to a principle level.
Yeah.
So you're fundamentally, what's my principle? And then it becomes values. Do I believe in this principle?
Yeah. Do I believe that two lines will be parallel or not?
So that's the philosophical topic that at some time, and how can I now prove or disprove this?
Yeah.
So how can I prove a philosophical theorem at the end?
Yeah, a little bit like that. And it's very sort of, I feel like it's very sort of creative. When I look at those of my friends that were PhD students and have stayed in research, a lot of them are very, very sort of cultural. They're very different from the sort of stereotypical engineer. It's very much more sort of almost like creating art.
Yeah, so it's the art part of science, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's it's beautiful.
Truly.
Is there any mathematical art you can buy?
Yeah, but you have a passion for data visualization as well, and that can be very connected to art. I remember in Spotify we had this data art competition.
Yes.
So it had a condition that you can create a beautiful kind of data visualization, but it needs to be some kind of utility. You have to at least understand what it means and can interpret something from it. And that limited a bit, the creative aspect of it. But they had this kind of amazing kind of particle flow kind of visualizations, which looks awesome and super beautiful. And I think data visualization is an art form.
Now I get goosebumps.
Right?
Who's the guy in H&M? He made the presentation at Data Innovation Summit this year. They celebrated something. This is hardcore applied AI data scientists in H&M, and they made this beautiful painting out of they visualize one of the recommender system algorithms. I can't remember.
It was actually Spotify, Dance with Data.
No, Dance with Data. That is Spotify.
That is from the competitions.
Yeah. No, but H&M did something similar. I think I saw it.
Sure, they have done it, but on Data Innovation was Spotify, for sure.
And then have you seen the video graphs representing? I can't remember different types of CNNs. I like Robert Luciani shared something on YouTube, which is sort of some guy out there. He's quite he's got quite a lot of hits. He's basically doing a 3D video rendition of I can't remember what it's some sort of CNN, and so it's like, how does it feel to be inside a CNN, right? And it's super cool. I get goosebumps.
It's certainly beautiful.
It's beautiful.
I think it's certainly an art form as well, and art can actually, I think, be really useful as well.
Yes.
We have spoken about the definition of art at some point.
That's a funny one. You have the best one so far. Or the most.
But I think in some way it's actually wrong. But I define at some point art as work that you have no use for.
No, and used to start an argument.
Yeah. I did. But in some way I think data visualization, which you have a number of people in your team that specialize in this as well. And being able to visualize, I guess, and have some kind of creative, at least aspects of how to do that is really important. Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah. So why did you really early on decide to have a balanced team with both hardcore scientists and visualization guys?
Well, because I think if we can't show what we're doing, then we failed.
To communicate as one way out.
Yeah. Communicate and explain. And give a sense of transparency as well, because when you do that, you can create a dashboard where people can interact with the different features, and you give some tweaking opportunities so they can try out different impacts, and it's like if you buy a car, you probably want to drive around with it a little bit before you buy it, because you want to feel how it feels. And machine learning algorithms can sometimes be very abstract for people to sort of understand. And then you want to give driving the car feeling to them.
What's the meaning of life? Look, I have it. The 42. Then we need to visualize it.
I mean, it's more than pie charts, to work with data. Right?
Yeah, but are you using any other technology than the traditional, like some more fancy to visualize big data or something like this? Or can you go a far way with like Power BI and the tableaus and stuff like that? Or do you need something else?
Yeah, I mean, we use a lot of. Yeah, we use a lot of Tableau in the bank, but we use a lot of other tools as well that are mainly like open source libraries.
In order to really visualize the big data stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. I'd like to keep a bit on the philosophical track, but move perhaps a bit more into AI. And one philosophical question is the singularity. And there is a number of definitions for it. Do you have a favorite one, or what do you think of when you hear singularity?
I think of hype.
Thanks.
And I think of fear-mongering.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm Finnish.
No, it's certainly true.
I like it.
I don't hold back. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, I really think about the kind of the fear that some people are experiencing and how other people are a little bit irresponsibly taking advantage of that.
To what end do you think? I mean, even if you take people like Stephen Hawking or Elon Musk or someone, I mean, they use AI more than anyone, and still they claim sometimes that AI could be the biggest threat to humankind.
Yeah. And it could be. I completely agree. I mean, if you look at all the manipulative algorithms that have been deployed in social media and that are kind of destroying democracy, that's probably a singularity. Hopefully not, but it's getting close. But then when you look at like the scaring up people about killer robots, I mean, the physical robots, it's so challenging to build them. That's not my fear. My fear is the virtual robots that already have been deployed and that are trying to impact us as humans and definitely changing our behavior.
But if I hear you right, it's a little bit like when we get into the artificial general intelligence topic of singularity, it's almost like we're losing focus on the real stuff because we're talking about something that is so, we're not there yet, right? So we actually have problems and topics we should think about right now that is more urgent. I mean, like in a little bit like that's what I heard in between the lines.
Yes, that's absolutely how I feel.
And what are they? So what should we talk about instead then?
So I definitely think that we should talk about what Anders also mentioned already with like the manipulation that we're being subject to when we interact with each other on social media. Yeah. I think it's really scary that it's allowed to continue to the extent it is allowed to continue. So sometimes I follow Vetenskap och forskning, the Facebook group, and it was quite funny because during the latest Swedish elections, suddenly a troll came in and started posting these like trolling pictures, and everyone, it's like a science and research group, everybody just got really fascinated and started like, oh wow, it's a troll.
So it was not like you got fooled by it. It was like, let's examine this.
So I think that was
I've never seen a troll before. This is cool.
Yeah, exactly.
They came to us.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
That's funny.
But moving a bit into your domain and let's say stock markets and whatnot, I sometimes claim that you can fear the singularity. You can fear, that at some point we will have a human level intelligence that potentially we will lose control over. But I would claim that even narrow intelligence can be sometimes more dangerous. And I'm thinking about the stock market now, and I'm thinking, imagine that it was some kind of system, algorithm that someone invents that simply outperforms everything. Wouldn't that cause another crash potentially, you would think?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there are quite some good books about sort of the flash crashes that have been created by algorithms gone rogue. When I was at the hedge fund, there was this incident where the stock market absolutely crashed for like half a day or something. It was just, and you could tell that something was wrong. And then, of course, we don't know what actually happened. But there's a rumor in the market that it was a person in one of the big banks that was sitting and testing a system and didn't realize that they were actually in production.
Oh, really?
So they suddenly dumped like 1 billion stock in some company, and that had a large impact on that stock. And then you had all the
Ripple
execution
effects.
algorithms and
All
the stop losses and
high
everything.
frequency
that
trading
just-
just
went crazy, yeah.
yeah.
So what do you think about that? I at least is more scared about that type of effect of AI sometimes.
Yep.
Because if you have a big economical impact, that is huge for our society, especially in these corona days. We can see, and we'll probably see more in the coming years. What the impact really will be. But how do you fix that? Or can you please tell us now, Salla? How do you avoid another stock market crash?
Yeah, don't test in production.
Step 1, don't test in production.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting phenomenon that the stock market is quite sort of dislocated from the primary market. The primary market is where you sort of sell your stock and then it goes into the stock market and people start buying and selling it. And it's like the stock market has become this, it's a little bit like gambling almost for some people.
I think it's a lot like gambling. But
yeah. And I read somewhere somebody was recommending that never invest in things that you don't understand. And that's probably like, I don't know. I tell my mom that, even though I'm not allowed to, but she's my mom. And I think like if you don't understand the mechanics of the stock market and if it's money that's important to you, maybe speak to your bank person and get advice on what to do instead. I think currently the stock market has been rising so much the last years that it gives a sense of security that you shouldn't have. Because you have all of these algorithms, you have all the governmental decisions that can come kind of overnight that will sort of limit some stocks. And if you look at Australia, this is my favorite example because it comes to sustainability. The Australian government decided to ban coal. And that had a big impact on all the companies that were holding coal. And from a sustainability viewpoint, it's perfect because now you have an example of why sustainability is an important factor in investments as well. Yes. So more sustainability, less algorithmic trading, maybe.
Or more sustainable stock market rules or
Yeah.
something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's the same with the regulations in all parts, that it's technology that moves very fast, and then the regulators are kind of running to keep up.
I'm thinking, I have two topics, a little bit switching theme now.
Okay.
And one topic we could explore is, more detail around driving innovation and even research. Like you're having now post-growth studies coming in. Do you have a real focus on this? I know Peltarion, you have your fair or pair.
Yeah, pair.
You don't have fair, you have pair.
But Google has stolen that name. I'm really annoyed. They also have a pair team. Which is
they should have GARE, right?
yeah. But Facebook has
Peltarion AI research. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah. So talking about how is SEB thinking about the research, right? In Scania, in Vattenfall, of course, we have R&D. How does that work in the bank? This is one topic. The other topic I really want to do, I want to get a little bit geeky on the tech stack. In how do you think about the tech stack for your 10 data scientists, and how do they actually interact with IT and data platform? This is a huge topic for a lot of companies to understand. Should we do it on-prem? Should we do it on cloud? We say we get started, but what are you actually using, right? So those are two favorite topics of mine, and you can choose. Or you can choose, Salla.
Yes, Salla, please. How do you get industries or companies like SEB to invest more in research?
I know
you have
you
PhD students.
You gave it there.
Yeah.
You got that,
So let's explore research.
Okay,
I know.
we start with research.
I fought a lot for that in Spotify, and it wasn't easy. And how did you? Was it an easy journey, so to speak, in SEB to get that working, or?
Do you do research? Do you see yourself that you have research? I think you have.
Yes.
But can you sell it like that internally?
I've chosen not to.
Sorry.
I do it a bit guerrilla style. No, but so.
No, we are outing you now.
Yeah. I'm not the research and development department of SEB. What we do is that we have a lot of master's thesis students that do interesting things for us, like the federated recommender engine idea. And we've had a lot of students over the years, very talented individuals. I think it's always super fun to work with them because they come with a very different sort of angle on things. Yeah. And it's also for us to be able to explore areas that we haven't done before. Then we have, so we have 2 industrial PhD students in the bank right now. One of them works on the trading floor and is working on improving our execution algorithms for our clients using reinforcement learning. And the other one is my PhD student, and he is looking at detecting anomalies in financial transaction data using topological data analysis and some sort of topological abstract ideas in order to be able to do something with the data. So we have the master's thesis students, and then we have the industrial PhD students, and now we're looking into adding even more sort of collaborations with more senior academic researchers. So I'm co-supervisor with one person, and the other PhD student has co-supervisors at KTH. But we also have a lot of other areas that we want to explore. And the VASP, Wallenberg AI Autonomous Systems and Software Program
and
is...
Don't forget AI, they added AI.
Wallenberg AI Autonomous Systems and Software Program.
Yes.
No, it's still... It's still VASP.
AIVASP?
It's still VASP. Yes.
Okay.
It's just... Yeah. I know. It doesn't... Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry.
So that very much gives us the opportunity to explore different kinds of things that we want to do together with academic researchers. And I think a lot of the guest professors and a lot of the lecturers that have been hired in the program have very interesting profiles for us. And hopefully we can like convince them that things that we want to look into can be interesting for them as well.
But would you say this is now a little bit more structured, that we need to do AI research? We need to better understand where this could be going in the next couple of years. So typically sometimes innovation is hard in a large corporate because what's your ROI in the first year? We're kind of working on a different time horizon here. So do you think that has that changed, or is this, because I really feel like you're going in this direction, and I think it's fantastic, the only way to do it. But is it more guerrilla right now?
Yeah, it's way more guerrilla. I think it's like, I mean, we have people that are passionate about research in the bank, and it's sort of connecting arms and sort of doing stuff a little bit on the side in order to I mean, the best part about the PhD students is that they're so good. And it's so much fun to talk to them, and it's like it gives us so much inspiration. And then I don't know that we would be able to have like 20 PhD students in our organization as it is now. I think we need to mature into that.
Yeah. So, but how did you sell, or maybe that was not the sell, Peltorion starting pair? Was that from the beginning or quite early?
Peltorion has had the luxury of always being interested in research.
Yes.
And the founder is a professor.
And
we have professor in the board. And
this is different style CEO.
So I think that's not the normal kind of company, perhaps.
I guess not.
But it was a challenge in Spotify. And when I left, I think they removed basically anything of the research groups and whatnot. So it is kind of sad. And everything moved to New York. And it's like, I think it's super important to try to promote industrial research in general.
Yes. And if you look at the big, if we try to learn of the top, if we want to close the AI divide, maybe we should take a look at the top, what they're doing and how they're thinking, and maybe we could learn something. Hint, hint. Who is publishing the most papers? Who is sort of doing the brain drain in here? Yeah. So there's something they're doing right.
Yeah.
But by putting investments, how many percent? 5?
Yeah.
10?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, if you get 5%, that would be awesome.
I mean, like imagine any company. And this comes natural to the fat man, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It comes completely natural. And why doesn't it come natural to us? And we think we're going to sustain this?
I mean,
so please.
I mean, what I'm kind of hoping is that it will become a natural part of even financial services. I think one of the challenges with like doing academic research collaborations is that it's not yet in our DNA.
In the financial industry.
Yeah. I think I was quite surprised coming from math, where what you do probably interests like 2 people. So you could even have like an open Google Doc where you were sort of writing your theorems and proving them because no one cares.
No security breach here.
Yeah, and then you come to financial services where obviously you have the bank law, but you also have like this culture of building things internally to quite a large extent, and it's that's your competitive edge or non-edge.
And this is so far away from open source, from the whole thing. So it's a cultural, clash.
Yeah, it is, and it's a little bit sort of reminiscent of medicine. And I think for me, it's fascinating to see what's happened during the pandemic, where they decided that like they would publish articles without peer review. They decided that they would start sharing data between research groups that normally would be like cutthroat competitors. But now they realized that okay, we actually need to collaborate with each other in order to create a better world or to create a vaccine so that we can actually
I think that's a super interesting topic, how the pandemic have influenced the research community in different ways. And I'd love to actually speak about that. But okay, so you actually are able to do some research in SEB. I think that's awesome. Yeah. And I hope that can inspire others.
And maybe guerrilla is the best way to do it. Why not?
Maybe to begin with. I mean, it's not super guerrilla. Our CEO knows that we have these PhD students.
No, but you don't need to, or do we need to have another? Do we need to put it in the org chart?
Yeah.
What does that give you in reality? Not so much.
Exactly.
Because it's going to be about passion and about the right people, and then virtually organize that and make it happen now.
Yeah, and I think defining like a project and having KPIs and stuff, it doesn't work in research. It needs to be something very different.
Yes.
And especially I think in AI, I mean, that field is moving so quickly,
fast.
so it's different from, I think, most other fields.
Yeah.
And
but I think the main bottom line here, if we are trying to close the AI divide, we kind of also need to, understand what needs to happen in order to be on the next level. And even if we are not doing it on their level, there's a long way to step up just a little bit. Yeah. And even if we double our R&D investments in typical companies like this, it's peanuts, right? Yeah. Just double it, no problem.
Yeah, stop thinking about the next quarter and start thinking about the next 5 years or something.
Yeah,
maybe like that.
And there, I actually think that SEB is pretty cool because I think it is a bit different. I think we sometimes dare to take bets. Like we have this SEBX, which is like a bank in the bank that's using Google Cloud from ax till limpa, as they say in Swedish, from the beginning to the end, and really sort of experimenting.
Actually put financial data in the cloud then? Or?
Yeah, but it's not SEB data. It's SEBX clients. So it's a company called Uniqlo. So it has nothing to do really with SEB. It's just that it's sort of an incubator.
I would be super impressed otherwise. But
no.
But eventually it's a little bit like, okay, we have so much stuff hindering us, so let's set up an experiment on the side. Yeah. Do a bank, but we do SEBX and see what happens.
Yeah, and
that's a way to learn and maybe bring it over. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's quite sort of. At some stage, I was giving a talk about data, and I wanted to talk about like the structure of data and how it's changed from like just simple flat files to knowledge graphs and the next generations after that. And so I looked at the kind of the year that this was sort of invented according to, I think, Wikipedia, because I was bored, or lazy, sorry, not bored. And then I looked at the annual reports of the bank for that year and sort of looked at what were we doing within digitization this year. And it's really fascinating to see, because what I also observed that I hadn't thought that I would observe was the continuity. Yes, things change. Now we have internet bank, and now we have FX trading, and now we have this, and now we have that. But the continuity is always there. It's like it is, and that's probably why I'm still there. It's this very long-term commitment to creating value for the clients, and sometimes allowing employees to do something different to continue that creation and to ensure that we're still relevant. And I think that's quite different when from other companies that I sometimes can observe, where you get
start, stop, project, go.
Yeah. You hire someone, 12 months later they haven't delivered, so they're gone. And especially in AI research, it takes way more time than 12 months. And if you do that, you're just going to create this, like, I don't think it's going to work very well.
We talk about the prototype graveyard.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Yeah, and we need to make the pilots go into production, make them fly, all this.
Yeah. Cool. And speaking about accelerating research, and research takes time sometimes, but at some, when you're put to the corner and have extreme situations like a pandemic, we seems to be able to find ways sometimes. And you can argue a lot about how the research works today, and I guess in some way it's the best we have, but it also certainly has its challenges as well. Thinking about like conferences and time to actually get a publication through the reviewing process, and journals having years of lead times and whatnot. And then we put everything on archive instead, and just have a preprint and ignore the conference. Or what do you think about this? It's like a double-edged sword in some way. You can say, let's fuck it, let's publish it and do blog articles and ignore scientific articles, which would be a negative thing, I guess. But on the other hand, you can't wait like 1.5 years for publication to come through, because then it's old news.
Obsolete.
Right? Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about this? Do you agree that this problem exists, and any thoughts about how to fix it, or can we learn something from the pandemics about this? Or
Yeah, I think I have a lot of thoughts about this. So in theoretical mathematics, the topics can be quite challenging. So like Andrew Wiles' proof of the Fermat theorem, he created a completely new theory in order to prove that. And there's a couple really established researchers whose names now escape me, I'm sorry, who have done really cool stuff, and they're very well established, but then they prove something, or they think they prove something, and then someone else who's also an expert within the field finds like it's actually inequality here, it's not equality.
Oof, Jesus Christ.
And that's the level that it's on for theoretical mathematics. So there, I think peer review is absolutely essential.
Yes.
For me, it's been fascinating to come into the machine learning world, where you don't really publish even in journals. It's the conferences where you publish. And I think it was interesting to see the way that ICML tackled the fact that they're getting so overwhelmed by the amount of publications that are submitted, that they sort of made it into different tiers, and now you have a lot of different people and slightly varying levels of sort of actual insights into the field that you start reviewing. And I think for me as a theoretical mathematician, I want it to be right, but at the same time, I think it's really inspiring to see what they do during the pandemic with the medical research reports. An issue there that I feel like I've been observing is that media has not understood what's going on. They still take it as this is probably peer-reviewed because it's been published in this fantastic journal, and they need to sort of at least take the time to look, has this actually been peer-reviewed?
Who has checked this for real?
Yeah, or how many patients were used in the study. And then, I mean, even with common sense, you can understand that if it's 20 patients, the relevance of this is very small. Yes, it could potentially be an indication.
But it made great news.
Yeah. And I hope that the researchers who published that they do that because they found something small and they want other people to also pick up on that and continue on it.
But it becomes really skewed when a media picks up on that way too early to draw any conclusions on it.
Yeah, and I think it creates sort of, I mean, I'm a lover of science, and I think that science is it's the best way we have to explore reality, because it's not feelings. It's actually scientifically validated empirically or in closed form that at least for these 100 people, this works. And for me, that's better than having a feeling that maybe some, I don't know, bleach. Sorry, I should not, yes. That's my personal opinion.
I love it. Continue. Be personal. We love it.
But so I think like the understanding of what the different publications are absolutely crucial, and I think that media has a big role to play there, to be like, maybe not even report about this, or when they report, be very clear. It's 20 people, it doesn't have any scientific value as of now, but it could be important for other teams to pick up on, or continue,
it takes us on a path to continue like that.
I think the pandemic have so many interesting, will have a big impact not only on the society for medical and economical purposes, but also I think on scientific reasons. And what I mean with that is, for one, we can't go to conferences anymore.
Yep.
and we have to meet online. And perhaps actually that's a positive thing, that we can have conferences that isn't super expensive to go to, or we can meet more often, and we can easily. It's cheaper to meet someone at the conference when you don't have to travel to US perhaps to do so, and we can have them more frequently, or you just publish an archive in a preprint. So do you think it will be a positive impact of the pandemic, so to speak, on the science community, or will it actually have a negative? Because you spoke about a large number of negative aspects of not having a proper peer review process, or too small experiments being performed and whatnot. So it can be both.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, ICML was $100 per person this year, and that was fantastic.
That's quite different, right?
Yeah. Plus, they had the best NLP algorithm ever. I have so many fun screenshots of nonsense. So if you wanted to, because I had to have it texted because I sit in like an open office, and then it was impossible to follow without the sound, because it was like, loads of offensive words showed up. I can show you afterwards.
All right, they had some work to do.
Yeah, no, but I think, so the positive thing is that it increases the globalization in the sense that you can go to conferences that are in completely different parts of the world. But I also think that it's not the same to not meet in person.
Absolutely, yeah.
And have you published anything out of SCP? Any of the work done that is sort of being published, or that you have an ambition? Maybe these PhD students now potentially will publish something on this, right?
Yeah. The PhD students will definitely publish. The master's thesis students, of course, publish their theses.
Locally.
And we had last year, we had a master's thesis student who did so many cool things that we're sort of still trying to nudge her to publish, because it was really sort of
it was
so
good
cool.
stuff.
Yeah, she
master thesis. Super cool.
She was done with what we had told her to do in probably mid-April. So she had like a month and a half left, and then she found this new article, and then she was like, I want to try implementing this, and then she did, and it was like super insanely good. Yeah.
So
cool.
Nice.
The time is running away with, and we have a couple of topics. So I think the one you mentioned with the tech stack is super important.
Let's go there now then.
And try to do that perhaps a bit quickly, like not more than 5 minutes max.
Okay, so now we get into speed dating.
Yes.
So this is when we do 2 to 3 minute LinkedIn clips. So basically, let's talk about the tech stack for the group data scientist team and how you work. How does that work?
So the current setup is that we have data engineers that help us onboard whatever data we want to start exploring.
And they're not in your team, right?
No.
Oh, they're part of IT?
Yeah. So
and what do they do?
So they help maintain the cluster that we work on. So we have our own Hadoop.
On-prem?
Yeah, on-prem, behind its own firewall. Because of bank secrecy. And we use sort of AD groups and Ranger in order to ensure that people don't suddenly see data.
So Hadoop cluster, Horton or Cloudera?
It doesn't matter anymore.
No, it doesn't matter anymore.
We bought Hortonworks, so it's the same nowadays.
So this is more about which version are you on?
Oh, I don't remember. We just upgraded to.
So here's the geeky stuff, right? Because here is like, let's talk about is it Horton, is it CDP, right?
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
It's a Cloudera, Horton.
Yeah. We started with Hortonworks.
Yeah.
But now it doesn't matter anymore. So and there we have edge nodes where the team logs in.
Edge nodes?
Yeah, and then they work sort of distributed using Spark for doing distributed calculation. A lot of Spark. We've had a reading group for the team. They wanted to have that so that we do all the details that we need.
And how do you basically organize data pipelines? Do you try to create a very layered architecture, almost like a warehouse architecture, using Hive, stuff like this, or really streamline data pipelines?
Yeah, so the way we typically work is that we do all of the training in the analytics cluster, that might called like that, the analytics cluster, which is the Hortonworks Hadoop, and then we publish the model to an API. Mm-hmm. And then whoever wants to query that can query from.
So you're actually trying to make a data product out of this in some way too. And how do you containerize it into an API? What do you use for that?
We use, let's see if I remember right, we use MLflow for versioning of the machine learning models. I think at some stage we had to use Jenkins in order to deploy stuff because Linux.
CI/CD stuff.
Yeah. And I think they just upgraded it's called OpenShift, I think.
Yep.
We have some new version of that where we deploy the APIs, and I think it's containerized, if I remember correctly.
So there are some open source stuff here as well.
Yes.
What is your favorite open source shout outs you want to do?
Now I need to think of something really good.
Yeah,
I think some people in the team would probably kill me if I didn't say TensorFlow, but I'm not sure.
Of course. So Python, or what?
Yeah, loads of Python, but then sometimes loads of Spark, because sometimes we have very, very large data sets.
Okay, and no quirky languages, like we had some favorites in Julia and stuff like this.
No. There's some people who are trying to convince us that R is good.
R is good. What's the problem with R?
The $1 million question. I think R is really good for like when you're research related, because you have a lot of sort of active research people there.
Some people say maths guys love the R stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
that's why I was interested. Well, you should love R.
Yeah, I'm not a conventional mathematician. And I think R is like really good with like matrix manipulations, but it's not always that you're doing matrix manipulations. No. You do other stuff as well. And I think Python is like the place where most data scientists work. So a lot of
this is where the frameworks and libraries are.
Yeah.
And I am very eager to give a rant about this as well. But
please.
But I do love that.
If you get into it, it's going to be 20 minutes, by the way.
Yes, let's stop here.
But no, we have one little one.
No. Okay, I think we have time for one more topic, and I'll let you choose about 3 different topics now.
Okay.
So it could be women in tech. I know you're a bit engaged in that. It could
I'm
be
a woman.
We can speak about regulation, which is interesting in the banking industry, of course, and potentially a challenge or hindrance that in some ways. It could be about blockchains. Could that be useful or not? Can it be used together with AI? Or what's the pros and cons with that? If we were to choose those 3, which one would you choose to speak about? I think I know what you would say.
What was the middle one?
Women in tech, regulation, blockchains.
Yeah. Ugh. Hard to choose.
Or you pick a new one if you can.
Or we can squeeze in 2. I really want to talk about both women in tech and regulations, if I can choose.
Okay. We have 1 minute.
Yeah.
But maybe we, I don't know.
Regulations are both good and bad.
Finished.
This is a LinkedIn clip I really like. This is like the let's build a wall type statement. We can tweet it even.
Yeah. No, but I think when it comes to regulations, I think the purpose of the regulation is usually very good. We're trying to create a safer society, trying to hinder bad things from happening.
Sound, but.
Yeah.
But what's the big but here, or is it a big but?
I think it is. It's massive but.
And what is that? It's a massive but.
That's okay.
No, but I think it also. I mean, if you regulate too fast, then you hinder creativity, and if you regulate too slow, then bad things may have started to happen already, and it can be difficult to stop something that's already like so integrated into some sort of a process somewhere.
And what do you feel about? Sometimes I almost feel like we are regulating, but in the wrong way. We are actually hitting the symptoms and not the underlying topics.
Yeah.
And in the way, the regulation is not actually helping to, what it was intended to do with the great AI divide in mind.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I have this idea that I keep trying to pitch to master's thesis students. I want us to take the whole, like, the legal framework that we exist in Sweden, so including EU law, including Swedish law, including, like, bank law, and then I want us to create, like, a knowledge graph of that so that we can identify all the contradictions that exist, and to be able to, like, for instance, for a financial services company, be able to write, like, I don't know, I want to do FX swap between these two currencies, and then finding, like, it's exactly these paragraphs that you need to adhere to. These two will contradict each other. Yeah. Good luck.
That's super cool.
Knowledge graphs on the. I love that idea. By the way, we can do that as a software as a service. Let's start a company and we sell it on the tap.
Exactly.
And people use input what natural language, NLP, a simple question, and the knowledge graph does and spits it out.
Exactly.
That's a business idea right here, Anders.
I know.
All right.
Yeah, and it's free to use.
But one quote that I like, I think I heard it from Evelyn or someone in Platarian Wells, and I think it's a really good quote, and it would be fun to see if you agree. So it's a small quote, basically saying, it's dangerous to regulate technology. We should rather regulate the effects of technology. And I think it's a bit profound, actually.
Yeah.
And it's like saying AI is dangerous. Let's not use AI. AI can be seen as a technology, but that's very dangerous to go on the technique itself, rather than what you use it for. It's the application, it's the effect, and the impact it will have that should be regulated rather than the technique itself.
Yes, I completely agree. And I guess, today is the Nobel Day, and I guess like dynamite is probably a really good example.
Don't regulate the dynamite, regulate the purpose you're using it for. Love of war.
That's a perfect.
That's a perfect.
Dynamite and AI. Let's not regulate the technique, but the effect of it.
But it's so obvious, right? Because it's just an enabler or a tool, and you can use it for good or for bad.
Yep.
One dimension. The other dimension we had earlier on the show, well, you kind of need less regulation for Netflix than for something that has huge impact on people's lives, probably.
Yes.
It's that simple, right?
Yep.
Okay, should we finished?
Oh, I'm biting my tongue. But yes, we should finish.
Okay, so now I stretch.
No,
women in tech. 2 minutes.
Yeah. We're looking at our producer here.
And he says, go man.
We don't have time limits.
We don't have time limits.
There's a kid.
The longest pod.
Now, this is not yet any record, by the way. We done 2 hours 15 at least.
2:45.
2:45 is the
Jesus
record.
Christ, yeah.
But then we were drunk.
Okay, but
Nice. You need to send me which one that is.
I think women in tech is super important, and diversity we can see, and I know
diversity is a key topic, I think.
We can even see that for data collection purposes. We have actually a thesis student right now looking a bit into this and thinking about, for these large NLP models, for example, and the data we use for that, is there some difference when in terms of gender as an AI see it? And then you can try to swap up things. So they have this example of, if you use the term nurse, will it be connected to a male or a female? And then you can swap up the term and see if the model will change the prediction if you change the gender, and you can see it actually does. And these kind of connection between the gender and an occupation like nurse, do of course exist in the data it's trained on, so it naturally exists in the model. And this is a bit different question than women in tech, but
It is actually. Where are you going with this, Anders? I don't know where you're going with it.
yeah, perhaps we should stop that discussion. It's a completely different one. Okay, so let's go back to women in tech instead.
Thanks.
Sorry for that distraction. It was not meant to be. Okay, so women in tech, I think it's a super important one to actually have people working in the field as data scientists or as people developing systems.
We need
with
diversity
AI.
of people building.
How do we attract more women like yourself into the field of AI?
That's a very good question. I was in the the board of the mathematics department at Uppsala University when I was a student, and at the time there was a short time when I was the only female PhD student in theoretical mathematics, and I got the question like, as a woman, what do you think? And I'm so proud of myself because I answered that I don't know, because I can't answer for all women, but as a Finlandssvensk, so a Swedish-speaking Finn, my opinion is this.
I love that answer. Oh my God. What?
Yeah. I did something right. No, but I think, the thing
But
is
it important? First of all, is it important to have
Yes.
diversity in this
Yes.
industry?
I think it's important to have diversity in very many different aspects. I think if you manage to create a heterogeneous team, you will notice that because they will talk a lot about culture and they will talk a lot about gender because those things are things that you can discuss. Whereas if you have too much of a homogeneous team and you have like one woman in the team, any kind of discussion about gender equality will create a sense of not belonging for the person who's apart. So it's exactly the same for male nurses and female nurses. having that discussion in a homogenous group where you have some people that are like almost like anomalies, that's how they're going to feel. So immediately when you start discussing that, it becomes, you need to ensure that you have like a secure environment for it, and not pointing at the women and saying, why are you so few? More like thinking about, okay, so how can we that are like adults and working in the field, how can we create an atmosphere that is inviting for many different
types.
kinds of people? And I think it's...
And why is it important, ultimately?
Well, I mean...
it's a stupid question
Yeah.
in one way, but let's just state it.
Yes. So for me, it's important because building a team means that you have to have a good balance. And you have to have an openness.
Yes.
And in order to have openness, you need heterogeneity.
Yes.
Because otherwise, people are all looking in one direction.
Groupthink.
Yeah. And if someone starts to look in another direction, you're an anomaly.
And then
so
you
it takes
don't
much more strength.
Effort of this guy to make...
Yeah.
So you miss good ideas and you miss bad ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, my one of my heroes is Joy Buolamwini, who is a strong member of the Algorithmic Justice League.
Justice League?
Yeah.
Algorithmic Justice League.
Yeah.
What a cool...
They do
Yeah.
a lot of really cool stuff. So she's quite famous for analyzing the facial recognition algorithms that many different tech companies have. And so she realized she's a person of color in the US, and she tried out the facial recognition algorithms, and they didn't recognize that she even had a face. And then
some of these examples we've heard about on
Yeah.
Twitter or whoever,
Yeah.
Google Photos
and all this.
yes, and
Was she behind looking at some of these cases, maybe?
I don't know, but so the reason why she's my hero is that she tried out, like she cut a face out of paper and put it in front of her face, and the facial recognition
Jesus
algorithm
Christ.
recognized the face, but it was just paper. And then
Coded bias.
Yeah, they have a new. I really want to see that movie, Coded Bias, and then what she did.
Is that Netflix?
I don't know. I tried to find it, but it looks like you have to connect to like local cinemas in the U.S.
All right.
So hopefully it'll be more available. We can always email her.
Yeah.
And then what she did was that she created a benchmark of how the world looks. So she looked at pictures from many different cultures, and she tried out the algorithms with this sort of benchmark of the world population. And then she sent the feedback to the technology companies, and she said, like, I'm a researcher, I will be publishing this in my thesis in 2 weeks' time. Please let me know if you're interested in having a discussion. and one of the companies actually responded, and she was invited to somewhere in Silicon Valley, and she met with the people who had built the facial recognition algorithm, and it turned out that it was white middle-aged men. and they were really thankful that she'd done this work, and they said that they understand that they really need to focus on this, and they need to think about the fact that they aren't diverse, and they need to take that into account.
And
So
now we went full circle on her topic,
Yeah.
back to your topic, by the way.
Exactly, yeah.
Nice.
Really a lot.
Super nice.
But one, I think, interesting discussion we have had, throughout different companies in the past, but how do you create a job ad? And especially if you want to have like a data engineer or ML engineer or data scientist or AI research engineer, whatever. I think that question is hard, and it's, I think a lot of job ads, if you look at them, is in some way more appealing to men than women because of the way it's formatted. Do you think about how you formulate job ads in a way that becomes more gender neutral in some way?
I think about formulating ads so that they would appeal to people that I would like to recruit. I specifically avoid words like senior or super senior or things that feel a little bit maybe scary, because I don't want people
To be scared.
Yeah, I don't want people to be scared, and I don't want people to apply for the position because it has a cool title. I want people that are genuinely interested in the stuff that they're going to be doing. So I try to be as concrete as possible and just like explain, this is kind of what you'll be doing.
Okay.
And please feel happy to meet my team and talk to them about what they do, and
Has that
that'll
worked
give
for
you a
you?
better feeling.
It sounds great.
I-
Has it worked?
I think so. I have.
And a lot of applications
Yeah.
and good applications.
Yeah. I think
and diverse applications.
Yeah, definitely. But I think and we have a lot of discussions about this sometimes. I think the process that we have for hiring people is beneficial for finding nice people. And for me, that's kind of key.
Why? What's making the nice people? Why is that?
Well, I think I was
What
lucky.
are you doing different then? Or
I don't know.
maybe everybody's doing that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think I was lucky in the beginning to have really, really, really good people in the initial team. And I think when we hire people to my specific team and also to other teams, we have like a process where they meet me first, so I get a feeling for whether I would like to have them in my team.
Yeah.
And then they get to do like a small work task, and they meet people from my team without me.
To work on something together with them.
Yeah.
This
so
is interesting. It's not that they are doing a work task to look at them, but you want to see the dynamics with your team.
Yeah, exactly.
Super
So
interesting.
they get quite a short time frame to start working on the subject, and then they meet with the team and they have like a discussion about what could they do next and what did they
This
find.
is super good.
and-
Fantastic.
Yeah, and it's like, and that's just to assess the
Did that
level.
come natural, or is that iterative? You figure that out. That's super smart.
That I think it kind of grew from a process of recruiting people, quite like a lot of people for me.
Because people have work tasks, right? Or they have tests. But how often do they do it in collaboration
Yeah.
with the team? That is, to me, the next level.
Yeah, I mean the aim of that interview is to, of course, assess the skill levels of the person, but there's no showstoppers there.
No.
I mean, you might have done a really crappy thing, but as long as you have
Good interaction.
a good interaction and sort
jelly.
of you can be like, I have no idea how to do this, but I tried this and it didn't really work. That's more than fine, as long as you have the right attitude and
And an approach, maybe.
and a willing to learn.
Wow.
Awesome.
You got another
That's
topic
a
in.
lot of great tips, I
You got
think.
recruitment in as well.
That's cool. Salla, what's next in your life in coming months and years, perhaps?
Christmas holidays.
Yes.
Yeah, no, so I mean, at work, we're really focusing on some specific areas like financial crime prevention and pricing. We have some up-and-coming collaborations with the ethical research team at Umeå University,
Right.
looking into kind of how can we monitor for ethical values and how can we identify our values and how can we implement that into a machine learning algorithm.
Really cool stuff.
And then I think, learning things continuously.
What's the next thing you are planning to learn?
I think the ethical stuff is super
Ethical
interesting.
stuff.
And then differential privacy, definitely.
Differential
Yeah.
privacy.
I think it's such a cool area. I can see,
What do you mean with differential privacy?
yeah.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, differential privacy is about creating kind of truly anonymized data sets. So that's kind of the main goal. Because, I mean, GDPR says that a data set is not anonymous if you, by combining with knowledge or other data sets, then...
You can figure it out.
Yeah, you can figure it out, then it's not anonymous. And it's enough to identify one person. So differential privacy is about creating kind of noise in a way that you can't identify an individual. And
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's surprisingly mathematically well-founded as well, which I
Yes.
think you appreciate
Yes.
compared to a lot of other kind of...
Oh yeah, that
science
really got you going. I can see that.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's mathematically closed theory.
Exactly. Awesome.
Wow.
If you were to recommend someone to come on this show, do you have any specific people that you think of?
Yeah, I mean, I have heroes. I would recommend Shiva from ABB.
Of course.
I think
yes.
she's super cool.
Yeah, we know her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. And then
on the radar.
Yeah,
She's on the radar.
and then I think from the AI agenda work, I think Linda Leopold and what she does
Right,
is really interesting. She has like a bit of a novel approach, like coming to it from the ethical aspect, really, and doing a lot of philosophical questioning.
Awesome.
Wow.
Great recommendations.
Super nice
And
conversation.
great to have you here. It's always a pleasure to meet you, and I'm
Thank you.
sure we
Yeah,
will meet
and I look
again
forward to
many times.
the after work, and we
Yes.
can talk real stocks, right?
and here
Sorry,
about
guys. Sorry, guys.
The investment tips that she's not allowed to speak
Exactly.
about publicly.
But
That's,
she will not give us advice. She will not give us advice. No,
I will cut this in any
he will not. It's already live.
Cool. Thank you very much. I wish you the merriest Christmas and Happy
Yeah.
New Year.
Thank you.
again.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
very
for the
much,
invitation.
Salla.
It was really fun.